Since the year 2021 is coming to an end, I have decided to rank every film that I've seen this year, 2021, that has premiered this year, 2021, with the exception of these films, which I meant to see but never could. So without further ado, let's begin the ranking. Also, one more thing. If you see a film that has pass in parentheses on the right side and it has a lower rating than the films below it, that's because I would rather watch that specific film more than the ones with the higher critical ratings. There will be a few films that I take out to review individually. Other ones, their rankings and numbers are pretty self-explanatory towards my review. And others I've already made videos about, which I will not be talking about today. So the first film I would like to be talking about is Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is a highly entertaining film, if not a very good one. The pacing is all over the place, there's zero character development, and it dives into things without much explanation, and things don't make sense. But the action scenes are pretty much the only highlight and are very entertaining. I give it the pass because I did have a fun time at the cinema and liked the final fight between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, because, like I said again, the fights are amazing, and this film is entertaining, but not a great film, so I give it a 6.0 out of 10. The film I will be picking out specifically to review is America, the Motion Picture. So, this film isn't very great. I do not think it is as terrible as many others say. It has great talent behind it, great comedy talent, and is a very funny, if not raunchy, take on and parody on American history and existentialism. But it is stupid, not very good, a little character development, but it's an overall entertaining film that I try not to judge too harshly because I love the history. I love that this kind of film exists. I just wish it could have been done better. But it is a funny, if not raunchy, experience that I give a 6.2 to. Next is Halloween Kills, a film that I found lackluster, boring, but not bad. Especially not as bad as everybody says. I find this film entertaining. The beginning is phenomenal, and then it kind of goes off the rails, but I do like the message it has to send about gang violence, and I think it holds up and strings together its narrative a lot more than people give it credit for. So I give the film a nice 6.9 out of 10. While rewatching the video, I just realized that in this edit, The Last Son doesn't have a rating. The rating is a 7.7. I think the film is very interesting and has a nice premise and executes it fairly well. Before I move on to more films, I would like to touch on The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. I think the film is fine. It's a very solid watch and entertaining, but by far not a great film and the worst of the three Conjuring films. Not much to say there. One of two Ridley Scott films that he is getting mad at millennials for not seeing is House of Gucci, a film I think is highly overrated and I think is a bore, unlike his other film that he made this year, which we will get to in a bit. It is a little pretentious, drawn out, feels kind of lost and inconsistent the whole time with its themes and character. Overall, a movie that doesn't interest me much, but I think does enough to not be terrible. I give it a 7.8 out of 10. Though stunningly directed and a film I was looking forward to most, The Many Saints of Newark has little to no substance. It is a unnecessary, unsatisfying, confusing, and convoluted prequel to a almost complete show. That just makes everything worse and disappoints fans. On its own, this film could have been great, but only comes off as meh. I did have a fun time with the throwback to The Sopranos and the ending, but otherwise, the film was very mid. Next, there is Ghostbusters Afterlife, a film that I was never looking forward to that I also find very mid. I feel that the film preys on your nostalgia and uses the plot of the first one at the end and follows it very weakly to little effect. The film didn't entertain me as a Ghostbusters fan, or as a film fan, but it does have plenty of heart, characters, and is a fun window back into this universe. And is much better than the 2016 version. I give this film a 7.8 out of 10. I would like to talk about all these three films. I'm going to start with Shang-Chi. Since I've already reviewed it, I'm not going to review it again, but I did lower it by 2 points because the first time I was rating it, I felt like I had to give it more credit than I thought it deserved. So I found that an 8.3 suits the film well. Shang-Chi is by no means a bad film or a worse film. It is a very solid and entertaining film, if not having a few problems, but it is a good film and one of the better films of the MCU Phase 4. Prisoners of the Ghostland is a very fun film. It has a fun premise. It's executed very, very entertainingly, and it has phenomenal direction, but the script is terrible. The acting at some points is a little choppy, but the film manages to pull itself together. And Those Who Wish Me Dead is a very underrated gem from this year. It is a thriller written by the man who wrote From Hell from High Water and Sicario, which are great films, and this is definitely a thriller. It's a fun, entertaining, well-directed, thrilling movie that is just a well-made film. I suggest that you watch it. I don't want to spoil anything. My number ratings for these films pretty much summarize or lead you to assume my thoughts on these films. But one I would like to recommend to you guys is The Wrath of Man. A surprisingly good film when I first put it on. A nice welcome back to Guy Ritchie after a few disasters has now come back strong with The Gentleman and The Wrath of Man. And this film is a very solid film. Doesn't try to accomplish too much and does have its fair share of problems with pacing and character development, but has a wonderful plot and makes the most of what it has. And is very entertaining, and unlike Guy Ritchie's other films, doesn't come off as pretentious when it tries to do something unique. For all those reasons, I give this an 8.6 out of 10. Tomorrow War is a film that I very much enjoyed. A stupid but satisfyingly fun action film that is otherwise average, that uses everything it is given to become something greater. Though the pacing is off and the expedition dumps are terrible once Chris Pratt actually gets dropped into the future, even with bad CGI, the film uses everything that it has to make something greater. An actual compelling future story that is clever but knows how to be stupid fun. And even with flat direction, there is tension in the film. There are strong themes of love, family, and sacrifice, and the 5-act structure adds to the interesting fun of the film. If you're one of those who dismissed this film, please, I beg you to look back on it and see it in a different light. These are all pretty much films that I would like to dive deeper into, but a few of them I think I can summarize pretty quickly. The French Dispatch I don't think is Wes Anderson's best. Definitely him at his most fun and creative, but not his most artistic. But the film is an entertaining and unique ride throughout. Next is Nightmare Alley, a solid adaptation of the story and the phenomenal telling about a man going insane. Willy's Wonderland is a gem and one of Nicolas Cage's many great films that came out this year. A small budget film that is a parody of FNAF and heavily inspired by it, I think is done very well and is overall just an entertaining joyride. While as West Side Story is a superbly directed, catchy throwback. The Tragedy of Macbeth strikes many great chords in the reinterpretation of a classic tale. And with all these really great, really well done, and mostly overlooked films, there is The King's Man, which is underrated, overhated, and something I've been looking forward to for over 2 years. Formerly in my top 5 most anticipated films of this year, and I think it delivers. The film does have its fair share of problems with pacing, consistency, with tone and characters, but does manage to pull it off. It is a very pulpy, fun, well choreographed, wonderfully directed, historically parodying action adventure thrill ride that balances all that out with a compelling and dark war story with the heartfelt tale of a father trying to protect his son. And once again, for these reasons, I plead that you watch The King's Man. And that is why I give it an 8.8 out of 10. Till Death is a overlooked and surprisingly great thriller. I recommend this to you because it is being overlooked, and the actress Megan Fox is actually starting to take control of her career and go for some more serious roles. And if this is the result, I can't wait to see more, because this film is truly great. It uses tension perfectly, and its pacing is pretty well done. We connect to her character and despise the man who put her in chains waiting to die. For those reasons, I give this film a 9.0 out of 10. With the masterfully well done tale of The Last Duel to No Time to Die, which I will talk about in a soon coming James Bond reviewed video. The humanity found in Finch and the thematic presence that is powerful and lasting found in The Green Knight, the masterfully well-crafted majesty of Dune, one recent film is one I'd like to point out, especially since I think I have an interesting take on The Matrix Resurrections. The Matrix Resurrections is a film that I do not think is bad. I think it has interesting ideas, superb direction that fits this film very well, that is still different from the others, but the film sure isn't perfect. Just because I currently don't think it's a bad film doesn't mean I may not come around to it, and I'm hearing that's the Last Jedi of the Matrix films. I am a Matrix fan, but not as big of a fan of the Matrix as I am of Star Wars, and I hated the Last Jedi, but I don't hate this film. But the film definitely goes downhill in the convoluted second half, because this is a film of two halves. The first half is really great and well put together, paced well, and strikes the perfect vibe of nostalgia, new and creative tension, and interest in what's going to happen next, and you start to invest, but that investment doesn't pay off. Overall, I give this film a 9.1 out of 10. Now I get to my top 5 movies of 2021. Each masterpieces, the 5 masterpieces of 2021. In 5th place, there's Dune. There's not much more I can say about it. There's not much more I can explain, even though I have written a multi-page review. The best thing I can say is that it is a well-executed, well-crafted, phenomenally directed masterpiece. Meanwhile, the film Drive My Car is a masterful study of grief, trauma, and the relief we find in each other. And Phil Tippett's Mad God is a masterpiece, or nightmare, 30 years in the making, made by stop-motion master Phil Tippett, who has worked on literally every film with stop motion from the 20th century. A phenomenal animator and a phenomenal film that masters visual storytelling to a T and has a pulpy atmosphere that can never be replicated. A very unique film that must be watched. And Zack Snyder's Justice League is a film that I love. One of my favorites of all time, and one that I've reviewed 3 times before this, and will continue to do at least 2 times after this. The film is nothing short of a masterpiece, with great direction, character development, and a complete story that affects every character and explores them well. All I can say to that is hallelujah. Almost a film that I would use to represent the whole year, since this whole year has been mainly for the audiences. Some of the highest audience ratings for films that I've ever seen, with films like The Snyder Cut, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Free Guy being released. But the film that I would use to represent this whole year is Pig, an indie gem starring Nicolas Cage. Like many other indie gems coming out this year starring Nicolas Cage, is a great film about coping, loss, determination, happiness, finding meaning in life, class, society, and self-worth that all manifests itself in a journey looking for a pig.